24. I have it called to order. Will please call the roll?
Alderman Buer,
Here.
Alderwoman Garza,
Here.
Alderman Masiacos,
Present.
Alderman Donnell,
Here.
Alderman Franco,
Here.
Alderman Seville. Can you hear us, Alderman Seville?
Can you hear me?
We
Yep.
can.
Yes, all right.
All right. Alderman Tolliver, Alderwoman Smith. Here. Alderman Bug,
Here.
Alderwoman Bade,
Here.
Alderman Lash,
Present.
Alderman Warman,
Here.
Mayor Irvin is not present.
Okay, Alderman Seville requests permission to participate remotely for Section 280 based on the reason of participation or extended illness. So moved.
Second.
It's a motion by, okay, Alderman Bate, second Alderman John Lash. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. And the all in favor, so please, now going through
Aye.
the Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, as many of you know, I am ill and cannot preside over this meeting remotely, so without objection, I'm going to ask Alderman Franco to preside in my stead.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to approval of the minutes, 24-0745, approve the minutes of the
So
Tuesday,
moved.
October
Second.
1st, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting. We have a motion by Alderwoman Smith, second by Alderman Garza. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries by voice vote. There is no mayor's report tonight, so we will go on to public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any members of the public wishing to offer public comment?
We do.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the rules for public comment?
Pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, all persons shall be permitted an opportunity to address public officials under the rules established and recorded by the council. Under our rules, any person may address the committee of the whole for up to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for all public comment. No person other than the timekeeper or the chair for the purpose of maintaining order may interrupt a person recognized for public comment during his or her comments. Members of the committee of the whole shall not engage with nor respond to a speaker during the time set aside for public comment. Staff is directed to follow up with members of the public with respect to any concerns raised during public comment within the scope of the city's authority following the adjournment of this meeting.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the name of the first person to offer public comments this evening?
First name is Greg Bulger.
Mr. Bulger, you have 3 minutes, and you may begin now.
Thank you. My name is Greg Bulger, and I live at my current address for the last 20 years. The distance between the proposed buildings and some homes in my subdivision, including my own, is extremely close. I would welcome the committee of the whole to meet with us and see it firsthand and fully appreciate our concerns. I recently looked at 2 Pulte projects in the area, specifically Neighbor Commons and Naperville Polo Club, where they build both single-family homes and townhomes in the same community. At Neighbor Commons, there was a large retention pond separating their townhomes from their single-family homes. This pond creates a significant buffer between the 2 types of homes. At Naperville Polo Club, the builder offers townhomes and 3 levels of single-family homes, ranging from their entry-level home, the Spring Series, their mid-level home, the Meadow Series, and then their top-level home, the Estate Series. Their Estate Series are similar to the homes in my subdivision. At the Naperville Polo Club, there's a clear layering of product lines as you move away from the townhomes, where you first have the townhomes, then you have the entry-level homes, mid-level homes, and then the estate homes. This layering effect creates a lot of separation between the townhomes and the estate homes. The builder understands the importance of a significant buffer between their entry-level product and their highest-level product in their own subdivisions. Why can't they provide us the same level of buffer separation between our homes and their townhomes? Thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you please read the name of the next person?
Janine Keing.
Ms. Keating, you have 3 minutes. You may begin now.
Thank you. My name is Janine Keing. I'm a 21-year resident of Oakhurst North Riverstone subdivision and pretty much a lifelong resident of Aurora. Our property is, along with several other neighbors, backs up to Old Yola Road, and our homes, patios, yards are in very close proximity. Under current conditions, this has not been an issue. Again, our concerns and items should be considered. Safety, intersection of Yola and Waterstone Drive, located between two of the most accident-prone intersections in Aurora. I have a real-time, everyday feel and experience with this intersection, not just data and numbers on paper. Speed along Yola Road is always an issue. Try doing 45 mile per hour speed limit, and you get tailgated and honked at. There's currently only one ingress/egress in and to and out of the Riverstone subdivision, and only one additional egress proposed or approved south of the Waterstone/Eola Road intersection. Left turns will only become more hazardous with an increase of the number of vehicles that will need to wait to turn left. I can't imagine this left turn out will be a good selling point for these townhomes or get any better, especially without a stoplight. But I'm sure the developer builder will assure new residents that the studies have been done, etc., and it will be okay. However, we know and live the reality. You've got the tollway to the left, you have train station to the left, middle school and high schools to the left, banking to the left, groceries to the left, gas stations to the left, everything to the left. Concern also about additional U-turns at Yola and Liberty, an already very accident-prone intersection. And we want to avoid the left-hand turn out of Waterstone. There are already daily U-turns occurring at this intersection. I see it very frequently, all times of the day. Concerns about proximity of traffic along Old Yola Road to several of the property owners' homes include the volume of traffic increase, all traveling right behind our homes. And this includes additional residents, delivery trucks, delivery vehicles of all kinds, visitors to the new residents, school bus traffic, and I'm sure other stuff. Emergency access. What are the definitive requirements for fire and other emergency access? We would like to have the decision makers come out and visit and review all these issues. And the other thing we were told is at the 9/17 meeting with the petitioner that traffic at peak would be 40 cars. I'm not sure if the rate is per hour, but 40 cars at peak. At the 10/2 meeting with the City of Aurora, we heard the number 30. At the 10/9 meeting with the City of Aurora, I heard 30 by the developer's attorney, and then the petitioners, I believe it was the engineer, got up and stated that the number to be 22. I don't know which it is.
Mrs. Keing, your time is up. Thank you
you.
very much. Madam Clerk, would you read the name of the next speaker?
Michael Keating.
Mr. Keating, you have 3 minutes. You may begin now.
Thank you. My name is Michael Keating. I reside at 985 Riverstone Drive. In reference to the Yola Preserve development, I'd first like to say I welcome the proposed change in zoning from light industrial to residential classification. Since this request for new zoning is being evaluated under conditional use, I would like to request the following considerations. For existing homes in the immediate vicinity to the property being developed for new townhomes, can the zoning board consider their comfort and general welfare? In particular, proposed townhomes identified as units 1, 2, and 3 may be designed within the minimal amount of spacing allowed, but still seem very close for both the existing single-family homes and new townhomes. After reviewing other similar developments by Pulte and Del Webb, the spacing between their medium-density areas and low-density residential areas seems to be more generous and allows for more breathing room between residents. Building orientations may be adjusted to help accommodate this request, although it may result in fewer townhomes being built. Secondly, adequate measures have been or will be taken to minimize traffic concerns for egress, particularly with making a left turn from Waterstone Drive onto Yola Road. This may involve working more closely with the County of DuPage to determine if a traffic light is warranted at Waterstone Drive and Yola Road to account for almost triple the number of residents that will attempt to egress both neighborhoods, the BNSF Railroad, and the propane gas farm from Waterstone Drive. Also, third, adequate measures have been or will be taken to minimize traffic concerns for ingress into the new townhome neighborhood. The current plan allows for a second egress directly from the WBIG Drive, street name is not available yet, but will not provide for a second ingress and will force incoming traffic down Old Yola Road. This plan does not take into consideration the blockage of the road due to emergent issues like a fallen tree, dropped power lines, flooded water main, stalled vehicles, etc. on Old Yola Road. This plan does not take into consideration, other concerns would include planned work that would block the road, such as road construction, vegetation management, power line work, etc. Suggestion would be to consider adding an ingress from Yola Road directly into the WBIG drive for new townhome residents, or at least account for emergent situations, as well as help limit the volume of traffic on Old Yola Road. Finally, if all ingress traffic is forced onto Old Yola Road, consider if this will be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity. If any entity will require the expansion of Old Yola Road for any reason, the ComEd power lines are on the east side of the road and will most likely force expansion to the west, which will be into the properties of the single-family homes. Currently, most of these backyards have large trees providing shade, noise abatement from traffic, but most importantly, a natural barrier against vehicles that travel too fast, lose control, drift from their lanes due to distracted driving, breakdown, etc. If Old Yola Road is required to expand, would request some form of a barrier is put in place to protect the homes and backyards along the west side of Old Yola Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you read the next speaker?
Bri Sue.
Rick, you have 3 minutes. You may begin now.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I live in 2905 Riverstone Court in the Riverstone community. I'm the closest to the development which is going to happen. If you come to my house, it's like 40 feet from where I am, right? It's like standing from here seeing a house right there. As one of my resident, told that in other communities where Pulte has, they've created a lot of barrier. What we're asking is to do the same thing for us, right? We want neighbors in our neighborhood, but we also want to live peacefully with them. So I would really request for you guys to see if we can move from this higher density to lower density housing and see if there is a different plans. The developer has told us multiple times, 6-7 times, they've changed the plans. We don't know anything about it and have told this is the only plan it is. And I would really hard to believe that there is no other plan other than this, which is set in stone. We would like to see other plans and see if it can help us with proximity, as well as also make sure that they can get their return on investment, right? We understand that, right? So again, we would like the neighborhood to be really with homes and everything. We understand that it's new neighborhoods. We want to live it, but see if it could be lower density. So that's the proximity issue, which I really want you guys to look at it. The second one is the traffic. I think some of my resident fellows will tell you, right? Taking a left is just not possible with too many cars. I'm telling you that. I know that there will be a traffic study in all of those. When you look into taking a left from our neighborhood, there is a slope which is coming down. The speed limit is 45, but I don't think so anyone is following that. It is 50 to 60 miles is what I see generally. Again, I cannot tell, but I can see that. Even on the right side, when you come from the Liberty side, there is a curve out there. So when you are standing there, the visibility on both sides is not that high. And I don't know if the traffic study has really taken that into consideration. As of now, I have a 17-year-old son who goes to high school. He just started driving. In the morning, when he leaves, I ask him to text me when he reaches it. That's how I'm worried with just this many residents, right? Every morning he goes there and texts me that I reached safely. That's what is my worry the most with his driving. Think about all these new residents coming and taking left now, right? The patience is not easy to be there. Even as an adult, sometimes I have to really tell myself, my life is more important than reaching somewhere on time, right? So I just want to make sure that there is a signal light or something on there which we can do it. The other thing is the developers have presented the traffic study a couple of times. They were all done when the school was not in session. I really would like to make sure that there is a traffic study when the school is in session, because in the morning the traffic is very hard to be there, right? Correct? Now, even with the proximity, I also think that the other thing is that water which is there, which I think they are trying to dig the water exit from our side and go around our houses. I don't know what type of vegetation they can even put to bring the barrier out there, because there'll be big pipes under that ground. So I really want to understand the barrier they are going to put it out there, not just pushing it all the way till the project gets done, because that's what they've told, that we will think about it, but it would be very late in the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you read the name of the next speaker?
Manos.
Manesh, you have 3 minutes. You may begin now.
Sure. My name is Mitesh Moria. I live at 995 Riverstone Drive. So I have two concerns. First one is around the traffic. So I will reiterate that typically the cars which are coming down is around 55, 60 miles. And in the peak hours, we have seen almost more than 1,000 to 1,500 cars passing every hour. So when you're doing a traffic study in terms of how many cars are going out, which could be around 40, 50 per hour, but you also need to consider how many cars are traveling on the Yola Road for us to make a left turn. at least in last 1 year, I have seen 4 or 5 major accidents happening over there, right? We have seen people trying to make even a U-turn over there on the Yola, which creates a lot of a problem. The second point is also, there is a board over there which says that do not block the intersection, but I have never seen that people really care about that. I understand everybody needs to go home, but that is becoming a very, very major challenge for us. And considering the new development which is going to happen, currently we have around 19 homes, so 40, 50 cars in the neighborhood. Now with 54 more townhomes coming up, you are talking about 150 more cars. So considering that, there is no way that anybody will be able to take left turn on time. Second thing that I would like to say this is the proximity aspect, which other residents also talked about. I clearly understand that, okay, we need to do development, which I can understand, but the challenge is the proximity, right? You need to have space for even, I hope they have considered that people who are going to live in the townhomes, they need to have, they will be having kids, they need some ground to play. Consider like, I am coming out of my townhouse and I see a house right over there where the kids are going to play, right? They don't have any kids playing area, which is also getting planned. So I will definitely consider proximity and for safety of everyone, right? So with that, I'll say 2 things. Please do traffic study again, and please consider what is the traffic on Yola Road, and not just consider how many cars are coming out, because I don't think that's a valid traffic study. And the second point for me is, please, we would love as residents to see what are the different plans, because we were just presented the final plan, and we were told that there were like 17 versions of it, but we have never seen it. So we would love to review, and we would love to welcome the development area, but hope it is win-win for everyone. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you call the next speaker, please?
Arnab?
Arna, you have 3 minutes. You may begin now.
Sure. My name is Arnab Talukdar, and I am one of the residents of the 5 houses of Riverstone community to which the proposed project will back into. Needless to say, I'm one of those 5 that will probably be most impacted by the development. Around 5 years back, when we were house hunting, our home was the first house that we saw, fell in love, and ultimately bought. Whereas people spend months and sometimes years to find a home, this house was love at first sight, and we had completed the purchase within 1 month. One of the biggest reasons for this love was how wooded and green the neighborhood was, and how private our backyard was, or all the backyards were. I'm here because those woods, that greenery and the privacy of our backyards is about to change in a huge way. Okay? I have 2 big concerns. One is the proximity of the buildings of the project to my home. As some of my other neighbors have mentioned, I would really like for all decision makers to at least visit our neighborhood and physically see what is being planned, including how many mature trees will be cut down. It's an entire wooded area, and how close the buildings will come to our backyards and homes. Planting immature trees or shrubs or bushes will not help in any way, and will mean that our privacy will be gone for at least the next decade, if not more. And that too, if you are lucky enough that all of those trees survive. The second concern is the ingress and egress from our neighborhood. We have only one ingress and egress from our neighborhood, and there are no traffic lights. Traffic on Yola Road is extremely fast and heavy, especially in the rush hours. Every time we have to make a left turn, we are literally risking our safety. Imagine what happens when 54 more townhomes get built, or around 100 more cars get into the equation. As all of my neighbors have warned, it's a disaster waiting to happen. What we're looking for, first of all, let me say that on one hand, I'm relieved that the proposed development is residential. I would have been really upset and disappointed if this would have been a commercial project. That being said, given the concerns that I have mentioned, I have 2 specific asks. One, redesign at least the buildings that back into these 5 homes so that there's more buffer space between those buildings and the 5 homes. Preferably keep at least 2 lines of existing mature trees as privacy screen, and or construct fencing and other privacy landscaping. 2, work with DuPage County and whichever stakeholders are needed to put in a traffic light at the existing ingress and egress, without which we can very well see a fatal accident happening any day in future. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you call the next speaker, please?
Jose Orta.
Mr. Order, you got 3 minutes, and you may begin now.
Thank you. My name is Jose Horta, and I live at 1005 Riverstone Drive. And like my other neighbors, we're happy that this lot is being developed for a residential purpose. However, we have few safety and privacy concerns that have been voiced out by my neighbors, and which I fully support. We don't believe that the asks of our concerns are outrageous, but truly safety and privacy concerns that I will appreciate. It would be appreciated if they are reviewed and investigated further with the intent to find a better and safer solution. Again, I have resided at 1005 Riverstone Drive for about 21 years. And although I do not agree with the low averages, dates, or times used for the traffic studies, I do understand the studies done follow some design guidelines. However, having lived in these subdivisions for 21 years and being so close to 2 or 3 of the more dangerous intersections of Aurora traffic-wise, I can tell you that not adding a traffic light at the intersection of Waterstone and Yola Drive is not a safer approach to protect the residents that live now at the Riverstone subdivision and the many that will come later as a result of this new development. Just adding an additional line exit from Waterstone Drive going north on Yola, where the middle schools, the high schools, the banks, the supermarkets, and all the stores and I-88 are located, without a traffic light is really not a safer solution for anyone. We are just not being proactive in protecting residents and drivers, but rather leaving this concern to reactive measures that will be more invasive and cost more as accidents pile on in the future. Among other concerns was privacy due to the new building's construction closeness to existing housing. It is also an impactful concern, and really, if you don't want to take our word for it, I invite you to see by yourself to effectively experience what we're talking about. That is why we have been asking all shareholders and decision makers to visit the site prior to making a final decisions that will hopefully result in a better and safer environment for all of us. We have also reached out to the DuPage County District 5 representatives and officials regarding the issue at Yola and Waterstone, and we're waiting for the response that relates to potential development. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you call the name of the next speaker, please?
Mercy Galicia.
Mercy, you have 3 minutes. You may begin now.
Thank you. Good evening, board members. I just wanted to let you know that we are having our Tano Wing this coming Saturday at the corner of 59 and 38 in West Chicago. If any of you guys would like to participate or come and support the Illinois Tejano organization, we will be having our celebration there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any additional speakers?
We do not.
Thank you. And now we'll go on to our committee reports. Chairwoman Smith, can you give the BZE committee report?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
2 times.
2 times Pro Tem. The Building, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee met on October 9th, 2024, and reviewed the following items. 24-0708, an ordinance establishing a conditional use plan development, approving the Yola Preserve plan description, and amending Chapter 49 of the Code of Ordinance, City of Aurora, by modifying the zoning map attached thereto to an underlining zone for R4A to OS1 for the property located at 620 North Eola Road. And I'm going to say unfinished on that. Unfinished.
Questions or comments?
Could we have a presentation?
Good evening. I do have a PowerPoint. My name is Caitlin Shuck. I'm from the law firm Rosanova and Whitaker, here on behalf of the petitioner Bridge Street Properties tonight. With me this evening is John McHale of Bridge Street Properties, Mike May, our civil engineer, and we also have Dan Brinkman, our traffic engineer. So we are all available to answer any questions that you have after the conclusion of my presentation. For reference, Bridge Street Properties is the contract purchaser of the property, and Pulte Homes will be ultimately developing the homes. If you could go to the next slide, please. A little bit of background on Pulte. Pulte was founded in 1950 and has built almost 750,000 homes throughout the U.S. and is the nation's third largest home builder. Next slide. Here's a list of Pulte's Chicagoland locations, which include nearby suburbs of Naperville, Bolingbrook, and Plainfield. Pulte has thousands of interested customers in all of their communities that have recently opened up for sales. Next slide. As I'm sure you're aware, Pulte has been under construction for a few subdivisions here in Aurora. There's not always an opportunity for us to come back after a project has been approved in order to talk about how things are going. First, we have Lincoln Prairie by Del Webb, which is a 545-unit age-restricted community south of Wolf's Crossing Road and east of Yola. Pulte has experienced an overwhelming amount of success with this project, with average sales prices ranging around $500,000 to $760,000, depending on the type of series of homes selected. Lincoln Crossing is located just north of Lincoln Prairie and consists of 162 single-family homes. We're seeing average sale prices closing between $600,000 and $670,000 here. Next slide. Pulte is also the home builder of Meadow Ridge. Meadow Ridge is an 80-unit townhome community located south of 75th Street, just west of Route 59. With average sale prices in the low 500,000s, Meadow Ridge has been yet another home run here in Aurora. Pulte is very honored to be able to provide diverse housing options to meet the needs of all types of residents here in Aurora. Whether it's a move-up buyer, first-time home buyer, empty nester, Pulte really does have a home for everyone. The project tonight provides Pulte with yet another opportunity to carry forth their success in town and provide that same quality that you've all grown accustomed to in their other communities. Next slide. The subject property is approximately 22 acres west of Yola Road and north of Liberty Street. Next slide. Currently, the property is the home to the WBIG radio station and has been since the 1970s. As you can see here, it's relatively outdated, the building is, and it's no longer viable. Next slide. Always nice to start with a little bit of history for context. So here's the property in 1978. As you can see, identified by the star, the radio station is the only development and is otherwise surrounded by agricultural fields and wetlands. Next slide. By 1998, we begin seeing some development south and west of the property, namely the Aventine at Oakhurst Apartments and the Oakhurst North Townhomes. Next slide. By 2006, the single-family subdivision just northeast of the property developed, leaving the subject property the only property not developed for residential use, but is otherwise sandwiched by residential uses today. Next slide. Turning to the city zoning map, the immediately adjacent properties are all zoned PDD, the Planned Development District, and they are all reserved for residential uses. The subject property is zoned M1, Limited Manufacturing District today, and very much does not correspond to the surrounding land uses. Next slide. In fact, here are some of the permitted uses in the M1 district that the property could be used for today by right. This includes, but is not limited to, warehouse distribution centers, recycling centers, towing services, storage of flammable liquids, heavy machinery and repair, chemicals, metals, and machinery manufacturing, and so on. These are much more intense uses of the property, which again are permitted on the property by right today. Next slide. With that in mind, petitioner is seeking approval to rezone the property to R4, R4A, and OS1 as delineated on this plan. R4A would permit the development of a 54-unit townhome community, and OS1 will reserve the remaining property area for open space and preservations of the wetlands on site. Next slide. As seen here, the petitioner's site plan provides a logical transition from the high-density apartments to the south of the property to the single-family homes just northeast of the property. The use is much more compatible with the surrounding area than any of the other M1 uses permitted by right. Next slide. With that, like I said, we're proposing a 54-unit townhome community on the property. We believe it will be highly desirable and unique as a nice residential enclave backing up to the wetlands just west of the property. The entrance to the community will be provided at Old Yola Road via Waterstone Drive. Required parking for the development is 216 spaces, but we will be able to accommodate 255 spaces on site. We're proposing sidewalks throughout the community. It will be heavily landscaped with a strong focus on preservation of the site's natural features. For reference, we hosted a resident meeting on September 17th, and roughly 50 residents attended. The main concerns, as you've already heard this evening, were traffic and landscaping and screening. This meeting was not required, but we wanted to take the time and meet with the residents to understand their concerns up front in advance of public meetings to see what we can do to proactively address concerns wherever possible. Next slide, please. So to this end, petitioner worked really closely with staff in order to try to improve upon the conditions, not only for the future residents of Yola Preserve, but also the existing residents that live adjacent to our site. So with that, and with the approval of DuPage County Department of Transportation, we are installing a right out onto Yola Road. This should help divert some of the traffic, the southbound travelers, away from Waterstone Drive. In addition, the petitioner will widen Waterstone Drive in order to provide a designated right and left-hand turn lanes to help the traffic distribution and, again, alleviate some delays in the area. Next slide. With respect to landscaping, the whole site will be heavily landscaped with a heavy focus on, once again, preserving the site's natural features. Next slide. You can go to the next slide again. Moving on to architecture, the base townhome will be 1,883 square feet. This unit will have 3 bedrooms. The buyers will also have the option to select a sunroom option or a habitable attic, which has a unique rooftop terrace. This increases the unit from 2,508 square feet, or I'm sorry, to 2,508 square feet in order to accommodate 4 bedrooms. Next slide. As you can see here, the townhomes will be developed consistent with current design trends. This includes the use of both vertical and horizontal siding. We have white trim, varying peaks, and dormers, all of which will be constructed with high-quality materials as Pulte does. Next slide. In fact, Pulte will be developing the same product that was built at Meadow Ridge. So again, this product was mentioned previously in my presentation. It has been very well received and successful in town. Next slide. Here are some interior photos of the townhomes. Generally, the homes have an open space concept and offer several upgrades and additions for additional features and spaces. All homes will have modern appliances, designs, and features. And with that, I just want to thank you all, thank staff for their time and consideration and their support to date. We'd also like to thank this committee for your time and consideration this evening. Our team is all available for questions, and we're excited to move forward, hopefully.
Questions or comments from the committee? Alderwoman Smith.
So, several questions, I guess. First of all, as I stated in BZ&E, Pulte Home does deliver a beautiful product. I don't think that there's any doubt about that. We've seen them, we've experienced them here in the city of Aurora. But I do have a couple questions on the large trees, the 5 homes that are indicating that they're going to be spatially confined by this building. Are those large trees on common property that you are, or on property that you're purchasing now? So it will, at that point, be Pulte property? Or is that going to be common property that the trees are coming off of? I'm trying to get a feel for what that line's going to look like.
Sure. So there's not many trees today on the actual property line. There's actually pretty minimal. The stuff that we are removing, right now we're at the preliminary phase for landscape plan. So it's a preliminary landscape plan. We will come back with a final landscape plan, also a tree preservation plan. The trees that we are saving are worth saving. Those that we are removing are really invasive species. So they're the species that really don't provide any natural benefit. The ones that are close to the property line that are worth preserving will certainly be preserved where possible. There was talk at the BZE meeting also about installing a fence, which we've agreed to. So that will also determine what can stay and what needs to be also replanted. And we will continue to work with staff on what that will look like.
Okay, and I have a couple questions, may I ask them now? This may be a staff question. Do we have an ordinance that tells us the space between one property to the next that we need to be aware of here? Is that somebody in staff that can answer that?
I can speak to setbacks, or Tracy can as well. For R4A, setbacks for side yard setbacks are supposed to be 15 feet on the corner side yard and 8 feet on the interior side yard when abutting residential. So generally, there's not usually a huge distinction from residential to residential uses. You see more of a distinction between like a commercial use to a residential use. So in this instance, the side yard setback of the townhomes, I actually have a slide for this. It's slide 49. I have that memorized at this point. And those are, that setback, like I said, maximum 15 feet if you're gonna consider that a corner side yard. And we're maintaining a 24-foot setback to the property line.
So wait, it's supposed to be 15, but you're doing 24?
24,
Okay.
correct. So in excess of the requirement under the code. And then rear yard setbacks are 20 feet from the back of the unit to the property line. That's the requirement, I should say, under R4. And we will be providing 36 feet where we are adjacent to those residences. So we were going above and beyond what is required. And important to note, the current zoning is M1. In the M1 district, an industrial use could be pulled, a permit could be pulled today and constructed within 25 feet of the residential uses immediately adjacent. So we're providing more of a separation from the residences than what could be built there today.
Plus, you're getting rid of that unsightly tower that
Correct.
is
That will be
there.
removed.
So, I'm almost done. So in that area where it's being built, because I've driven down there a couple times since last Tuesday, is there gonna be a space to be able to turn, because you get down in there and you kind of, you get kind of landlocked in there, even in your car. If you go right, you're down towards that, whatever that industry is that's down there. But if you go left, that's where you're gonna be building, correct?
I'm
Where-
not sure I understand the
Where
question.
where you're gonna be building where the tower is?
Yes, yes.
So, to drive, you drive in off of Yola, you're going left, correct? And it's gonna be back in there. Will there be like a turnaround area in,
We could pull up the site plan,
Yes, please
actually.
do.
I don't know what
'cause
slide number it
I
is.
go in there and I get very confused to how all of this is going to fit.
Sure,
And what
it's-
it's spatially going to look like and how vehicles are going to move around.
If you want to go back towards these are backup slides, you can go to the original presentation, and it's in there. There you go. Oh, thank you, I appreciate it. So, like I said, entrance is off of Waterstone, you come down Old Eola, you get into the community where the existing radio station is, and then there's a cul-de-sac immediately north, and then it also circulates all the way around, so it's the same. It just circulates in and out, if that makes sense.
And then my last comment is, as I've talked to some of the more senior aldermen, we've discussed that, although I don't believe it's something that we've adopted as an ordinance, but we typically have 2 ins and 2 outs, and we're not going to have that here. But I want to, discuss with the staff, all of the options that have been looked at, to make sure that there's nothing more that we could do, and that you guys have done everything that you can do to make sure that this is going to be accessible in and accessible out for the residents that live there, and safe in and safe out for the residents that live there.
Yeah, so the requirement for 2 access points comes for a fire safety, and that's up, I believe, and maybe John can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's 100 townhouses that you have to have that 2 access points.
Thank you
So
for
anything
clarifying that.
underneath that, you can only have 1 access
Okay.
point. We did take a look at that, and we did, I do know that they did contact the property to the south, to see if they could get a fire access out of there. They were unwilling to give one, so we did look at that right out onto, Eola as you access, or as it comes in. So we did look at that, and we feel that, that with the 54 units, that this meets all of the criteria, and it will be safe.
I guess my last comment is, if this doesn't go here, we don't know what else could go there.
Absolutely, like,
Okay.
the petitioner said, it is zoned for M1 uses right now.
I'm finished.
Alderman Bavade?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Based on listening to the residents and their concerns and their emails, I wanted to request for another traffic study to be conducted at various hours and times The last time the study was done was during when there was no school. So June, no school buses. Now, if we can have a study done during school hours and peak hours, especially early in the morning and maybe around 4 o'clock and then again 5 o'clock. And north of the bridge, there is a light which like lets you enter the shopping mall as well as the residential area on the right side. Similarly, if we can still work on getting a traffic light here with DUDOT, I think some of the residents are in touch with the DuPage County Board members and they're waiting to get a response from them. That would be great. One ingress was also another issue, but as she mentioned, 100 homes is the requirement. I wanted to know if there are any other subdivisions in Aurora or Yola which have one ingress and are of this size, if Ms. Basics can answer.
Yeah, Liberty Manos is another townhouse development that was just constructed off of Liberty, and that has one access point in and
Okay,
out.
okay, thank you. And could the petitioner provide a separate addendum for each owner to sign acknowledging that the maintenance of wetlands is the responsibility of HOA? I know we discussed briefly about this at BZNE, but it'd be nice if it's not just a fine print, it's a separate document
sure
making them aware. About the fence, I wanted to propose a condition for the committee of the whole that the petitioner show a 6-foot solid fence with supplemental landscaping along the property lines with portions of Lot 15 adjacent to Lot 1, 2, and Lot 3 on the final plan. If we can add this.
We're amenable to the condition.
Yeah. And if there is a way to reduce 2 homes near Lot 2 and 3 at the corner to add buffer to these closest homes, that will be really appreciated.
Understood. As I mentioned at the BZE meeting, this plan has been in the works for quite some time. It's really difficult to take a unit and shift things to different buildings just because of like we have setbacks to adhere to, we have the stormwater ordinance to adhere to, we have subdivision ordinance regulations, we have utility placements to consider, and all these things are taken into consideration. When you look at the size of the site is 22 acres. Technically, the gross density is only at 2.5 units per acre. If you just take that back, not considering the wetlands, looking at just the buildable area, we're at 5.4 units per acre. So actually, we're still under the comprehensive plan designation for how much density is kind of allowable for a townhome development. So it is difficult to shift things around at this point. Like I said, when we're meeting all the setbacks and we're actually exceeding those setbacks and providing that substantial buffer, we're completely amenable to putting up the fence. But at this point, like I said, this is a plan that has been in the works for a while, and we're very proud of this plan, and we're excited to move it forward.
Alderman Bug.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Alderwoman Babe, were you finished?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Alderman Bug.
Thank you. I got a couple questions. To answer though, Alderwoman Bate, another subdivision is Brier Court Villas off of Farnsworth. Has one entrance and exit. It's now Ward 3 under Alderman Masiacos. Very nice subdivision. I understand you've moved along, and I understand the sentiments of the residents. We're moving this, but I really feel like if we don't get a decision from DuPage County, I have friends who own the WBIG building, so I'm not going to say anything bad about the building. It's an old building. Let's put it that way. It's time for it to go. So I've pulled out of there many times attempting to make that left. And the gentleman mentions his 17-year-old son makes that left, probably to go to school. it is a several minute stand to get clearance from the cars coming down the hill. And I think if you did a traffic study, anyone sitting there saw that. Several minutes for one car. And I think that the reason that those residents, I can't say why those residents decided to purchase there, but part of it, I believe, was because there weren't that many houses there. So if you're pulling out to make that left, you're the only one. So I understand you're adding a lane to have a right and a left, which would be helpful.
Just two rights.
Oh, no, additional lane to go left, so the,
Yes. We're
there-
widening.
So
one
those,
zone,
you were
yes.
dividing those cars, right? The cars kind of did it on their own to get out, but that is helpful. But if DuPage County, and, you know, they'll have to do the study. I'm not even sure a light can work there with that hill coming down. I mean, we may be moving too fast. I don't know what DuPage County is going to say, but it's their authority there.
It is.
So, you know, ultimately, we're going to have to see something. You just can't landlock those people and say, hey, you're buying this house, but really, to be safe, you have to make a right out of your subdivision. You can't go left. I just don't think that works. It's a weird spot, you know, the hill from the train, the overpass, it is what it is. But, yeah, I think we definitely need to hear some input. Hopefully they're reviewing and starting to move on some of this information.
And we had met with DuPage County just as part of the process. I mean, it's not uncommon for us to meet with county, city, engineers, everybody, just to see, you know, what works for design. And at that time, they weren't exactly supportive of the right out, and they ultimately agreed to the right out. So their support for a stoplight at the time was not warranted, but I mean, we're certainly not opposed to, you know, helping to have the voices heard, I guess, so to speak.
Well, let me ask you the direct question. I mean, it's the elephant in the room. In your study that you already did, traffic study, what was the time it took a car to make a left turn out of there?
We have our traffic engineer here.
For the record, my name is Dan Brinkman with Gale Hamilton Associates. We did the study. It's very difficult to make a left-hand turn. There's no sugarcoating it. There's no doubting it. We don't put a stopwatch on how long it takes people to make a left turn, but as traffic grows, one of two things will happen. People make a right turn, or they'll make a two-stage left turn while they pull out to the median for a bit and then join northbound traffic. There's no sugarcoating it. It is difficult to make a left turn.
Okay, well, I appreciate your honesty. Have they, I mean, a small consolation, have they looked at widening the collection there in the median? I mean, that's what people do out of necessity.
Correct.
They pull out, and really, you have to make sure your car is parallel or you're gonna get clipped. So, have they at least addressed that possibly? I mean, I don't remember, is it further down, it's raised?
It's raised.
Yeah.
It's raised at that location.
So, yeah, I guess part of this ball is in DuPage County's court.
The study's been submitted to the county. We're awaiting their comments.
Any other
Thank you.
questions or comments from the committee? Alderman Lash.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Can we get a copy of that study?
Absolutely, everything's on file.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to find out, what are the energy efficiency standards on the buildings, the townhomes that you're putting up?
You know, I don't know the Pulte standards per se, but I know that they have incrementally been incorporating green practices in their building, but I don't have that information, and unfortunately, my Pulte representative is not here tonight.
Okay, and just a comment for the rest of the older people that have wards that are not along Yola Road. They had, I believe, 1,400 accidents on Yola alone in the last 2 years. In my opinion, we've already overdeveloped Yola. I'll just put it that way. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I had a question.
Alderman Buer.
Yes, my question is, what are the projections for school-aged children? And if they're going to be bused, is the location of the schools going to require a left-hand turn?
Yep, so we looked into the school district. We actually met with District 204 back in January, pursuant to the city's code and how you calculate projected student generation. We're only expecting 20 students to be generated from this community, and that's from straight out of city code. That's based upon our estimated bedroom count, based upon other sales of the same townhomes in like Meadow Ridge. So this is pretty accurate, we feel, and we met with District 204. They have no objection. Buses will come through the community, and we don't foresee any issues with that. And there's a letter from the district as well.
Any other questions or comments? I believe it's going to be going on unfinished. Okay. Would you read the next one, please?
Yes, item number 24-0409, a resolution approving a preliminary plot and plan for Yola Preserve subdivision located at 620 North Yola Road. I say we'll put that on unfinished as well.
Okay, that will go on unfinished.
And item number 24-0738, an ordinance vacating a stormwater control easement and city easement on the property located at south of Wolf's Crossing and East Yola Road in Will County, Aurora, Illinois.
With no, I'm sorry, Alderman Lash, go ahead.
There's a separate issue. I had one
Yes.
quick comment on the previous agenda item. Mayor Pro Tem, it would be nice if we could get staff to do a look back and just see how many accidents have happened at this specific intersection over maybe the past 2 to 3 years to see how big of an existing problem it is before we add 54 more units. So I just want to put that question out there. I'll submit it in writing as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and so consent on 24-0738.
Consent, no objections. 240738 will go on consent.
Okay, 24-0704, resolution approving a revision of the final plot of lots 1, 4, and 6 of West Yola Plaza subdivision located at 1901 through 1989 West Galena Boulevard, and establishing lot 10 through 15 of West Aurora Plaza subdivision number 2, and I say consent on that.
Consent, no objections to go on consent.
Mayor Pro Tem, that is all we have at BZ&E.
Okay, and this last one, 0704, is an appealable item? Okay.
So we don't have to do anything.
Okay, no action needed on that. In the meantime, I think we lost Alderman Seville. Can we get him back? He's in the cloud somewhere? There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now. We just lost your picture, Mike. We always like to see your face, so thank you. Okay. All right, moving on, we will go to the Finance Committee, which I will be giving the report on. The Finance Committee met on October 10th, 2024, and reviewed the following items. 24-0720, resolution approving the acceptance of a grant from Old National Bank in the amount of $10,000 to assist with.
It's been up the entire time from my end.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I'll read that again. 24-0720, resolution approving the acceptance of a grant from Old National Bank in the amount of $10,000 to assist with outreach and programming expenses for the Aurora Financial Empowerment Center.
Consent.
No objections, they'll go on consent. Next one is 24-0751, a resolution authorizing the execution of a Phase 1 preliminary engineering supplement with WBK Engineering, LLC, in a not-to-exceed amount of $56,075 and the appropriation of $60,000 of MFT funds for New York Street Corridor, Commons Drive to Entrance Number 6 project.
Consent.
And IDOT requires an approval of the resolution before MFT funds can be appropriated. With no objections, this item will go on consent. The next one is 24-0754, a resolution approving the establishment of a transformation fund for the Aurora business community and authorizing the deposit of $5 million with Invest Aurora for its funding. And can we get a short presentation on that, please?
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. My name is Chris Minnick. I'm the Chief Financial Officer and City Treasurer. I'm joined this evening, to my right, your left, by Kelly O'Brien, the President and CEO of Invest Aurora. And we're before you this evening to discuss the establishment and funding of a transformation fund that would be administered by a new consolidated economic development entity within the city. Last Thursday at the Finance Committee, we had a robust discussion of historical economic development efforts within the city and more recent efforts to consolidate the economic development initiatives of 4 organizations into one organization and the benefits and the efficiencies that this action allows. The Transformation Fund that we're here to discuss this evening would be a significant component of this new consolidated entity and would allow for immediate implementation of programs and economic development initiatives to be developed. The 4 organizations that have agreed to consolidate are Invest Aurora, Aurora Downtown, the Aurora Regional Chamber of Commerce, and the Quad County African American Chamber of Commerce. The preparation of the legal structure for the consolidation is currently underway, and the new organization is expected to publicly launch in the first quarter of 2025. As part of this process, a new operating agreement with the city and the new organization would be developed and would be brought forward for subsequent city council approval. The city is in the budget process for 2025, and funding is available to allow for the establishment of the fund. The council may recall that many years ago, the city improved and funded the development of the interchange at I-88 and Yola Road. This occurred in the mid to late 2000s with the intent to develop and ultimately recapture the funding at a future date. Over the intervening years, since the mid 2000s, the anticipated commercial development has not materialized, and more recently, we've seen several proposals and developments for data centers at that particular interchange. In fact, in June, the city entered into a development agreement with Cyrus One for the development of a data center at that particular interchange. The development agreement allowed for a reimbursement payment of $16 million for the improvements, for the cost of the improvements, that were expended at Yola Road and I-88. The city is in receipt of the $16 million and is currently holding it and will be allocating it via the 2025 budget process that will begin a little bit later on this week. We have identified several purposes for the funding, and several of these items are included in the 2025 budget that will be reviewed. The first of the purposes is establishment of a revolving fund for economic development. It is anticipated that the city would utilize the seed money to make investments in economic development opportunities, and that these opportunities would in turn reimburse and replenish the fund, allowing it to continue perpetually. This fund would be seeded by approximately $9 million of the recapture proceeds. Additionally, the city has set aside $1 million to add to the historic preservation program, and that will be discussed as part of the budget process moving forward. We've also earmarked $1 million for a facade and business improvement program fund that is currently under development. The particulars are being developed, and that would also be handled during the 2025 budget process. And lastly, the item before you this evening, the fourth purpose and use for the recapture funding would be earmarking $5 million for a transformation fund to be administered by Invest Aurora and ultimately by the new organization, Consolidated for Economic Development Purposes. I would now like to turn the floor over to Kelly O'Brien, as mentioned, the President and CEO of Invest Aurora. She will make a brief presentation about the consolidation efforts that have been ongoing over the last several months, as well as some particulars related to the Transformation Fund, and then staff will be available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening, Council. It really is a pleasure to be here. This is my first time presenting in front of this council. I started in the role of President and CEO of Invest Aurora on July 1st, and I can tell you it feels like being shot out of a cannon. We have been doing so much so fast, and it's such an exciting time to be in such a fantastic community. So for context, the goal tonight is to really touch on 5 key points. First, I do want to share just a little bit of my professional background. Want to talk about what a P3 is and the relationship that Invest has with MOED. That will lead into the ecosystem as it relates to the business associations that are active here in Aurora, how that's going to be changing, and then finally the request for funding of this transformation fund. So beginning with myself, I have been involved in economic development now for over 20 years. I really stumbled into economic development, but I have been involved in a very local level. I have been involved in a regional level, both here in the Midwest, worked with led an organization that was responsible for efforts in 21 counties in 3 states, the Milwaukee, Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana corridor, because a groundbreaking study showed that despite the state lines and despite the county lines, we operate as an economic unit. I also worked in Charlotte, North Carolina, for an organization that had an 11-county economic development group and the City of Charlotte Chamber of Commerce, and they merged. And so we, and I was the president of their 501c3, which was a foundation, and for the C6, I led the government affairs and research unit. I really enjoyed the Carolinas and thought I would be there for a much longer period of time. And a parent got very sick, and I made the decision to come home. And after being in caretaking mode, the opportunity to work here in Aurora presented itself, and I am extremely grateful, again, for the current role. And what's especially exciting is that in the first half of the year, I was engaged as a consultant to begin to look at the ecosystem that exists here in Aurora and really compare it to other metros around the country that are growing. And having worked in Charlotte with an organization that had merged, I had a better understanding of how this works and some of the, real benefits and some of the more challenging points. But I came into that and I was very clear that, I was coming in with no preconceived decision. It was coming in and bringing the powers to be with the different organizations together. So saying that, kind of coming back to this PowerPoint, as it relates to public-private partnerships, I really applaud the City of Aurora for supporting and creating an entity like Invest Aurora and the relationship that I inherited, which is a very positive relationship with MOED. And I do want to acknowledge that David Debo is here in the audience tonight, as well as one of my Invest colleagues, Chris Faber. And again, it's a really wonderful relationship. We complement each other in terms of the staff. We're able to bring different expertise to the table. And this model, where there is a public-private partnership like Invest Aurora and a city economic development office like MOED, as we looked around the country, communities that had this model tended to be more successful. So again, I applaud what's in place, and I just want to again assure the council that it's a very strong, positive working relationship. If you're not familiar with public-private partnerships, on this slide I show just a few examples. The first one being the State of Illinois Department of Commerce and Intersect Illinois, which is a public-private partnership.
Kelly, can I stop you just for 1 second? We're not getting that on our screens, like they're over there. Are you guys getting over there? Yeah, they got it on their screens. We're not getting it on ours. If we just wait just a second, see if we can bring it up here, so we have, oh, there it goes, all right, I'm sorry, thank
No,
you.
no, I'm glad. Thank
Okay.
you for allowing me to pause so you can have this information on your screen. And you'll see in the yellow bars across the right-hand side, again, kind of some of the key points of a P3. And the next slide, which I guess I am responsible for, here we go. This is talking about, oh, wait, actually, hold on a second. Oh, okay, one. There we go. So again, just reinforcing the relationship that it currently exists between Invest and MOED, and you can see where we have things, you know, where we complement each other. And again, this is a partnership. So while there are certain areas of expertise in each of MOED and Invest, I think the important thing to remember is just how positive this working relationship is and what it means for the city of Aurora. So going back to this study that we spent the first half of the year working on, and I again want to acknowledge Alderman Donnell for the work that you did working as part of that committee. What we did is we looked at 6 organizations plus the city of Aurora, and you'll see the organizations that are listed. And we had regular meetings. The report ultimately, as you are aware, was then ultimately divided into the first section of the report, kind of details each of these organizations that are the key players in this ecosystem. The second part of the report looks at different metros and how their ecosystems are divided or are consolidated. And what you'll see is that there's generally kind of 3 buckets. So we have, what we saw is that there are communities that have what we have in Aurora currently, where everybody works in silos. We found another structure where they worked, there was an economic development and a chamber, but they had an umbrella organization that was responsible for 5-year capital campaigns. This was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I was absolutely amazed. This has been going on since the 90s, so they have quite a long track record. And there's a whole process of how the chamber and the economic development work to get the information to the funding cabinet. But for example, they're 3 years into their 5-year funding cycle, and they raised $16.5 million. And that was a combination of city funds, county funds, and private sector funding. But $16.5 million is pretty impressive for a city like Sioux Falls, and it just, I think, shows the potential for what we can do here in Aurora. Moving on. So after going through this study, we early on determined that the Convention and Visitors Bureau did not make sense to come into this fold. But early on, there was momentum with 3 organizations, with Invest Aurora, with the Aurora Regional Chamber of Commerce, and with the Aurora Downtown. And there was, I think, immediate kind of synergy because there was an overlap in missions. And there was feedback from the business community that it was sometimes frustrating that there was not that coordination and that they might be getting invitations for multiple events and that sometimes, you know, they coincided with each other. And so there was, you know, this idea of economic development, for example, where that is the main charge of Invest Aurora. And back in the beginning, for example, on the regional chamber's website, one of their pillars was economic development. And I said, well, what are you doing in economic development? And then Aurora Downtown, as you can imagine, I mean, they are working with the local business community on a day in, day out basis. So they are kind of already getting information about retention and expansion opportunities and ideas for attraction. So the idea, again, that this was fragmented, you know, does not serve our community in the best way. So it was exciting that while I took the helm of Invest Aurora on July 1st, through the month of July, those 3 boards voted for this consolidation. And as we have embarked on this journey, in September, the Quad County African American Chamber voted to be a part of this. So we're just thrilled. God bless you. So where we are now in terms of the timeline, here in the month of October, we are diligently working with a not-for-profit lawyer who specializes in these kind of consolidations and working with the local council for each of the 4 groups. In fact, I was on the phone today for many hours with the lawyers as we're looking at revising and amending the existing legal documents, specifically the bylaws. And the 4 boards will meet on October 22nd at a joint board meeting where we will be walking them through these proposed changes and the structure for this new entity. And then we will ask them to go back to their regular board meetings in November and vote to adopt the revised and amended bylaws. That will, in essence, create the marriage. Our goal is to try to have this legal structure in place by the end of the year, because based on the research that I did in the first half of the year, the idea of really being able to embark on these conversations in earnest in January and have this in place in 1 calendar year will absolutely be a best practice that we can tell on the national stage. All you have to do is Google Rockford as an example. They have recently merged their economic development and their chamber, but guess what? It took years. And a lot of steps forward and steps back. We have been on a wonderful trajectory. We hope to stay that way with your support tonight. But it really is exciting how the business community has come together, as well as leaders from academia and from government. So by the end of the year, we'll have the legal structure in place. We're going to be working on all of the details that you can imagine, kind of standing up a new group in terms of a website and the accounting, the books and all of everything that's involved. And the goal will be to really launch this new effort in Q1. And I hope to see each and every one of you at our launch event. More details to follow on that.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the committee? Alderwoman Smith.
So I understand everything you explained to us, but what I don't understand is the ultimate function. And being that obviously the relationship with Invest Aurora and MOED has been a grand relationship, and the individuals that are part of Invest Aurora have been handpicked individuals that have stake in our city and are capable of making decisions for our city. Very important group of people from my perspective. And then now you are joining these other groups that all have leaders, but they don't have the responsibility that is now on that Invest Aurora now has. So when you marry these groups together, how are you going to be making these decisions, and who's going to be sitting at the table to make these decisions when now you've got, and I think it's a grand thing. I've never understood why we've had so many chambers, and I'm so happy to see this, but I'm still confused in who's the decision maker when it comes to Invest Aurora into the economic development of our city. What are you going to do with those board leaders on each one of those boards?
Sure.
Does that make sense to you, what I'm asking?
I think I understand what you're asking, and I guess there's a 2-part answer. So as it relates specifically to Invest, because as you mentioned, I mean, it is a team of real economic development specialists.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that we are working this is that we will literally be basically embedding the Invest team into this new organization. So other than the fact that they will have additional support because of this larger entity, their day in and day out responsibilities really will not change. The relationship with MOED, will not change. Where I talk about this consolidation in terms of the capacity, so all of a sudden we will have a full-time CFO, it's envisioned. We don't have that right now. We will have access to a much larger marketing and communications group, and right now we have one person, and that's part of a portfolio. So actually, it's going to be a real benefit to our economic development work, because there's going to be more people supporting a more, I would say, robust vision. And what I mean by that is, one of the reasons that doing this now is so critical is because we're all aware of what we read in the paper or hear on the news with these emerging technologies and AI and how it's going to change life as we know it, our businesses and our workforce. And so this is an opportunity to begin to understand the industries that are in Aurora, how those new technologies may be impacting those, making sure that we are working towards the workforce and whether it's retraining or what opportunities, would be for this workforce. What we want to do is get ahead of what happened in the 1990s with NAFTA and make sure that we're not a community like so many when the manufacturing just kind of left and nobody knew what to do. So we are going to have economic development is going to be one of the key pillars of this work. It will be better supported by these different divisions that are coming together by virtue of these 4 groups.
Okay, but my bottom line question's not quite answered.
I was going to get to the board members next.
Okay, I just want to know who's the decision maker, because our investors are very qualified economic development people.
Yes.
That's not necessarily going to be the same from the folks in the other organizations. They may to be in that same economic development hat.
So again,
silo, whatever
yep.
you call it. And economic development has been very handpicked by our city staff, and now we're bringing everybody together. I'm worried about who's making decisions for the city of Aurora once all of this comes together. So, and it is a concern, because I've asked this question a few times and no one has answered it.
Okay, so let me get to the board question, but just so you think, it's a division. So instead of it being Invest Aurora with 4 employees, it will be a division of economic development within this new group. So we're literally just taking the people and putting them with a new name, basically. But in terms of the board, here's how the structure is being proposed. Number 1, there's going to be a new C6, a new 501c6, a new legal structure that will have a board of 13 people. Those 13 will be made up of 2 representatives from each of the 4 organizations that are coming together.
Who's choosing those representatives?
There's going to be we are working on the criteria for being a part of that, and it will ultimately be the board. All of the board members that currently sit on these 4 boards are going to be repositioned on what we're calling the mothership board. And so the big board will have all of the board members plus these 13. There will be qualifications to be on the part of that 13. So what we're really looking for are people that really have an expertise in making sure that we are addressing the original missions.
Who put together the qualifications? I'm just going to ask questions.
Yeah,
Who put together these qualifications to, to how these people are picked?
So that is something that we're working on in real time. But for example, there may be, these are things that we have a core transition committee that is currently populated by 2 members from each of the 4 groups. And so this core transition committee is reviewing all of this information. But what we know for sure is that we want to make sure that this group of 13 will be 5 members selected by the mayor, and then 2 from each of the organizations, and those 2 will be the strongest advocates for economic development, for the downtown, for the African American business community, and for the business community at large via the chamber. So there's one entity that will be brand new, and that will have this 13-person board of trustees, actually, is what we're referring them to. Then we're going to have the next piece of this puzzle is there will be this larger entity where all of the board members are then repositioned onto this board. They will be the board of directors. The 13 will also be a part of this. So again, the goal is to have a larger tent in terms of making sure that people that want to be involved, that have something to contribute, both from an intellectual standpoint and from a financial standpoint, will be a part of the leadership of these groups. And so to answer your question, it's really that group of 13 that will be the major decision makers in this entire entity, with the advice of the larger 50-member board of directors.
And keep in mind that the interaction with the city and with MOED, that doesn't go away. Those players are still going to remain in place, and Kelly will be coordinating the communication between the board members of the new organization, the discussions with MOED, and MOED is still going to be anticipated to be making the strategic decisions of the overall direction of economic development for the city itself. So there will still be that level of city interaction and responsibility back to the city as we discuss the initiatives and strategy of economic development.
Okay, I'm not going to ask any more questions, but I do have more questions, so perhaps you and I can talk offline.
I'd be delighted.
Okay,
thank you.
Any other questions or
I'd like to
comments?
ask-
Alderman,
I'd like to ask a question.
Alderman Buer.
Yes, so you had 6 organizations, and one of them that was not included is the Greater Aurora Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And so my question has to do with the, working with the Latino-owned businesses. And so how would that piece be addressed with this new structure?
Sure. So first, let me assure you that the Hispanic Chamber has been invited to the table from the beginning. And most recently, I think it was maybe 2-3 weeks ago that I spoke with them and again, asked if there was any interest in having us make a presentation to their group. And while there doesn't seem, we have not received that invitation yet, the goal, and from my mind, is I think that there is a lot we can do for that business community in partnership with the existing group. Because again, by virtue of this consolidation, we will have more resources and the ability to really, grow our Hispanic and minority-owned businesses. We want to look at how do we support more homegrown enterprises and really look at key initiatives to do that. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for collaboration.
Alderman Lash.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. At the end of your document here, you say the transformation fund will be managed as self-sustainable, yet you're here asking for $5 million. Can you explain where the self-sustainability comes in and how do you plan to fill this so it doesn't turn into another money pit?
Oh, sure. So that's, as I mentioned to Alderwoman Smith, the idea for board appointments is that there will be a required financial commitment. So we do envision that there will be streams of revenue coming in from...
What streams?
Streams of revenue such as the chamber member dues, such as, foundation support, grants, federal, state. So we will be looking, there'll be sponsorships for different events. So there will be a comprehensive, and that's another, we have a finance committee that we are standing up that was populated by the treasurers of these 4 groups and some other experts in the finance community here in Aurora to help us, really put together a budget and identify revenue streams so that the idea that this $5 million is is self-sustaining. So if we spend it, we want to be able to look at opportunities then to replenish it.
And then my other big focus here is going to be on the public scrutiny of how those dollars are spent. The Rockford group that you mentioned, I believe that a reporter spent 2 years working through the PAC to get it accessible to the Freedom of Information Act, considering that it was largely funded with government dollars. Do you intend to have this body be subject to the Freedom of Information Act, or are we going to have to fight tooth and nail to get information about how the $5 million gets spent?
Well, as you saw in the proposal, we are committing to giving regular reports to the council at least twice a year.
Twice a year.
Twice a year, and publishing an annual report. There will be opportunities for the council members to be a part of the working committees. We will have plenty of opportunities for there to be input.
Are the meetings going to be public?
I can't answer that at this point. I don't know. We truly have not talked about that.
And then, since you're asking for $5 million, your professional experience, you kind of went over it a little bit. Does that also include working for the mayor's political campaigns?
I met the mayor 20 years ago, and it actually, and then I literally did not see him for 20 years. But yes, back in his first campaign, I think I gave some advice, but I was not a major player in any of his campaigns.
Thank you.
I would ask that every time we do something, you ask that same question, everybody, because that seems like a gotcha question. So let's make this about the fund, let's make this about what we're doing here, and not make this political. The last thing we need up here is to make this political, and if we're gonna do it, let's do it for everybody.
Right.
Next question.
Let's talk
Who's
about
got-
everybody up here that's
Alderman-
running for mayor.
Alderman Masiacos, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Alderman Chairman Franco, just real quick, I know, and I appreciate you meeting with us. I know you met with me. I don't want to speak to everybody else, but I'm sure you did.
Well, thank you for mentioning that, because it really was, I've been very grateful for the members of the council that have taken the time to show me their wards, and I've learned so much from you. And for those that we haven't been able to coordinate the schedules, I really look forward to a time that we can be together. So thank you for mentioning that.
And I do plan on reaching out to you as well after this, like Alderman Patty Smith also said too. I don't want to keep everybody down or keep you down either. I don't want this to be an inquisition.
I'd be delighted again to work with you anytime.
I appreciate that. But the one thing that really stands out in my mind is, how did you come up with 5 million? Why wasn't it 4,980,000, 5,100,000, maybe even 10 million? How did you come up with 5 million? My first question. I have two questions.
Chris?
Well, the $5 million, you know, it was a good figure to allow for some beneficial seed money, as we discussed at the Finance Committee meeting. This being a new organization, taking a look at being able to apply for grants and apply for additional fundraising and fundraising opportunities. Having a robust balance sheet will be a spectacular benefit for the organization.
But what type of matrix did you use? Rule of thumb, test the wind? I mean, honestly, that doesn't answer the question. I don't know how to go back to my constituency and say, okay, off that reply, I mean, how you came up with 5 million? I mean, it's got to be something more concrete to that 5 million, no?
Well, again, as we discussed, the $5 million was available as part of the transformational recapture payment that we got from the data center and working with Cyrus One. And additionally, as mentioned, it will provide a good base to develop a strategic plan, to get the programs in place, and to begin to administer and fund those individual programs that are accelerated.
And I know I've asked this question before. Investor already has a $1 million loan capability, and you're sitting on the majority of that money right now already, right, from the Dunham Fund?
Oh, right, not a loan, it's a revolving loan fund.
Not interest, revolving loan fund of $1 million already. So this will put you at 6 million?
Well, not exactly, because Invest Aurora has set up a bank account specific for this consolidation effort. And if we are awarded this request, this 5 million will go into that fund. We have a naming contest happening right now. In fact, if you're interested, there's down to 3 selections. It's open till Thursday at noon. But once there is a name selected, and once each of the 4 organizations adopt the new and revised bylaws, we will be able to set up a bank account specific to this new consolidated effort. Part of the reason that we're setting up this new C6 with the 13 Board of Trustees is because we want to make sure that it is protected from any future liability that maybe we haven't discovered in our due diligence. You know, because these 4 organizations are decades old, you just never know if something is going to come out of the woodwork. So we want to make sure to protect this 5 million, you know, kind of at all costs. So the 5 million will go into an account that's controlled by the 13, and then there will be an operating agreement that will be between it and the larger organization where all of the staff will be located. So in terms of the Dunham revolving loan fund that you mentioned, that will stay in an account that is specific for the purposes of the program that it was awarded for. So it will not be commingled.
Was there ever a thought of going back to the Dunham Fund and asking them based on what you're trying to do? And
Absolutely, and I did, and I was told that this year that they had already made all of their grant decisions, and that we could revisit it possibly next year, but the timing was just such that it wasn't a possibility
So
for new funding.
if they expand on their loan agreement to you, would that mean money would be coming back to the city? In regards to, say they give you an extra $2 million, would you return that $2 million out of your account back to the city?
I guess that's something I guess we could talk about, but if they gave us $2 million specifically for the existing program, that is for real estate, then I really wouldn't be in a position to do that, because this money, this $5 million, is really to help stand up this organization, to help us, as Chris mentioned, if we're applying for grants, federal grants, for example, so often they require match money. So it would put us in a position where we would be able to access this fund for those kind of purposes, whereas unless Dunham or some other foundation, because we will be talking to foundations, but if we're spending part of this $5 million and we're able to go to any funding source, our goal will be to always replenish whatever money was spent in that $5 million.
And again, the city's going to receive benefits by virtue of a more healthy and robust economic development climate, a healthier business climate. There will be education types of endeavors. There will be business attraction and retention efforts. All of this will be part of the money and part of the programs that are going to be funded by this seed money. And so we will be receiving benefits back in those types of terms as well. There will be a lot of spin-off benefit that comes back.
This will make this community more competitive.
Oh, I'm not challenging that right now. What I'm trying to get at ultimately is why put this, I mean, it sounds a little bit, and help me understand this, it sounds a little bit like we're maybe putting the cart before the horse by asking for budgetary allocation before you have worked out your organizational requirements and your legal requirements and helping us understand exactly what you'll be doing.
Well, in terms of what we're going to be doing, I mean, the idea is that we will be bringing leaders from government, academia, and the private sector, really understanding the needs, and then designing initiatives with metrics that will help move the needle in order to make the community better, stronger, more competitive. But if we don't have this, initial funding, if we're not well capitalized and getting the attention of larger donors, we're not going to be able to really kind of expedite to get ahead of the curve. I mean, Aurora it's the second largest city in the state of Illinois, and it's almost like the best kept secret. Everyone that I talked to in my world, when I said I was coming here and said it was the second largest city, people said, oh, come on, it's Rockford, it's Springford. I said, no, it's Aurora. So there is a lot that we can do. There's some low-hanging fruit, but without the funding, these things haven't been done, because that's part of the problem of the existing ecosystem. These 4 organizations are not really properly capitalized. They don't really have the right staff. So even with Invest Aurora, as an example, we have a great team, and attraction is one of the tenets of economic development, but there really isn't a robust budget in order to really do attraction. So that's one example. Then you go to the Quad County African American Chamber, they have no staff. You look at Aurora Downtown, they have 1 full-time person and recently a part-time person. So none of these groups are really able to move the needle in their missions, and all of their missions really complement each other. So by virtue of helping to fund this effort, we will be able to better accomplish what these groups were originally set up to do and create these different departments so that, for example, with the Invest staff, we have one person who's supposed to be the marketing communications person, and she is the operations person because we don't have an accountant or a CFO. So all of a sudden, we're not able to really do the marketing communications to the best of our ability. And I can go through each of the organizations. So the idea is, just imagine any kind of a company, an organization with these different departments. So instead of having, a part-time person doing communications here and there, we're gonna have one department for communications. And that will serve then the small business, the minority Hispanic business. It will serve the economic development efforts. It will serve Aurora Downtown. So I really just think that everyone is going to benefit by being able to create this new entity with at a really exciting and crucial time.
Well, I'm not challenging that point right now, but more from Mr. Minnick, I guess, which comes to the final question, which I'm leading up to. Is the typical allocation that we give to Invest Aurora in our annual budget, is it going to continue, or is this just an upfront payment in terms of helping them out for the next 4 or 5 years?
There would be a continuing allocation to Invest Aurora for their operating funds. These funds would not be considered operating funds.
Okay.
So this would be seed money for those programs, those initiatives, those items that would be developed. We would continue to have a budgetary allocation to Invest Aurora to allow them to continue with their operations, the rents, the salaries, those kinds of things.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I ask one more question?
Yes, and then we're going to move on.
Yes, and you brought up my question. How many paid positions are going to be within this organization? And I'm going to throw another question. I'd like to see what the criteria is on how these folks are going to be picked, these 13 people are going to be picked.
Okay. We can
So
follow up with
how
that.
many paid people are going to be within this group? Because it feels like you're starting an entire new business within the city. And although we've been talking about this for a while, for me, this is the first time I'm hearing about this. This is a big deal. And I feel like I need to know more about how this is going to benefit us in the long run. And we're not just out there handpicking people to sit in seats that aren't qualified for the seat. We aren't, I agree, this is a critical time. And if we're going to have people doing this work, it needs to be people that are qualified to do this work. And I don't know that as you put these entities together, you have that pool of people right in what's currently there. So
That's right. And we envision currently between the 4 organizations, there are 11 employees, which is a mix of part-time and full-time people. It's a mix of salaried people and hourly paid people. And so part of what we're going to be doing, again, is kind of looking at the holistic picture and standardizing, a handbook, an employee handbook. It's a big problem that we have found in these organizations. That being said, the goal is we'll probably end up at somewhere between 10 to 15 people total. So
being paid?
Pardon me?
Being paid?
Being paid, right. And again, these are pretty, standard positions in organizations that just don't exist here. So I go back to a CFO. I mean, the Aurora Regional Chamber has a part-time CFO, and no other organization, we're outsourcing it. But as you can imagine, that the benefit of having, a full-time CEO, and we're envision keeping the part-time CEO.
That's the problem. I can't imagine it. That's why I've got so many questions, because I can't imagine all of those needs. So that's why I keep coming up with all these questions. This is a lot in one period of time. I know I've had the reading and I have done the reading, so I am finished.
So this is going to go on unfinished. We're gonna stop that discussion right here. We can finish it later on. If there's anybody who wants to talk behind the scenes, I think we spent enough time on this. Kelly, be prepared to talk to some other people. I'm just concluding the Finance Committee report. Right now, Alderman Seville, are you there? Do we have Alderman Seville? All right, so Alderman Seville was going to give the PHST report. He was also going to name my replacement for tonight because I have a meeting in 20 minutes and I'm the only one with the key to get in there. So I have to go to my constituents. So since Alderman Seville is not here as the acting mayor pro tem, I'm going to ask Alderman Warman to finish out the meeting as mayor pro tem. Give me 1 second to go over some issues with him. If we get Alderman Seville back, then we will have him do the PHST report. If not, we'll just skip that and go on.
Thank you. Look forward to hearing from anyone with questions.
Council, do we need a motion for this?
Well, the proper order would be Alderman Seville, as the mayor pro tem, to choose somebody to replace me as he chose me to replace him. Since we don't have him here and as acting mayor pro tem, I would suggest, so we don't have to wait in perpetuity, that we have Alderman Warman finish out the meeting, because that's who I chose, as Alderman Seville would have chosen somebody. So that's why I make that recommendation. If anyone wants to challenge that, we could talk to legal about that, but I don't know that there's anything
That's
that
what
we
I'm
can
doing.
refer to that would deal with mayor pro tem, and then a third mayor pro tem. So with that said, Alderman Warman, if you want to take the helm, I got people out in the cold that I have to deal with.
From legal.
We would. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Under regular Robert rules, you need a motion.
Wait, hold on, we have them here.
All right. So Mike, Alderman Seville, can you hear me?
Hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I've heard you the entire time. You guys just have not been able to hear me.
No, we got you now, though. So, Alderman Seville, you're going to present the PHST meeting. However, since you're the mayor pro tem and you chose me to fill your spot tonight, I have to leave because I have a meeting starting in a few minutes, and I have to be there because I have the key to get in. So at this time, I would ask you to choose somebody else to fill my role who is filling your role. If you understand that. I apologize for the confusion, but that's kind of the predicament we're in. Well, we didn't do seniority for this, so that's, since Mike has that authority, I will just let him choose.
I would say seniority.
I overheard you say that you would like Alderman Warman. That's supposed to be. Hear me? Hello?
So,
Can anybody hear me?
So, Alderman Silva, we kind of hear you
Testing, 1, 2,
breaking
3,
up.
4.
Did you just say that you would ask Alderman Warman to fill my spot? I'm sorry, I'm just so hard to hear you.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yes.
the mayor pro tem is choosing Alderman Warman to fill my spot. Are we good to go with that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And then, Mike, and we're going to try to get you to give the report for PHST. You're breaking up a little bit. Hopefully, that will fix itself up. Okay? So, Alderman Warman, if you would like to take the helm, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck with your meeting. So, Chairman Seville, would you please like to give the Public Health and Safety and Transportation Committee report?
Yes, thank you. The PHS&T meeting met October 8th, 2024. We have one item on the agenda to consider, 24-0749, a resolution seeking City Council authorization to apply for the State of Illinois Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus CDBG CV Healthy Houses Program Grant in an amount not to exceed $2 million to preserve multifamily landlord-owned low to moderate income units up to 6 units total and encourage neighborhood revitalization with an emphasis on maintaining health and safety. So yes, this is a grant that the city would be applying for. This is for HVAC systems like air conditioning, furnace, ductwork, those types of things. This is for landlords in good standing only, and for either single family or multifamily with 6 units or less. And let me just say too that staff has requested that this item be placed under unfinished business because there needs to be a public hearing at the city council meeting.
Unfinished.
Okay, with that being said, this item will be placed on unfinished. Thank you, Chairman Seville.
And that's the report that I have from PHS&T. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Gars, would you please give the Infrastructure and Technology Committee?
Thank you. Yes, we met on October 7. The first item in the agenda is 24-0706, a resolution authorizing the purchase and installation of equipment to upsize a high-pressure pump number 1 for the Water Production Division, an amount not to exceed $103,405.00.
Consent.
And hearing no questions or comments, this item will go on consent.
Next item, 24-0707, a resolution authorizing addendum of the amended and restained potable water service agreement with Colgon Carbon Corporation for the continued lease in granular activated carbon and filter groups 1, 4, 5, 8, and 9, 12 for the Water Production Division.
Consent.
Hearing no objections, this item will go on consent.
Next item 24-0331, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of the low bid from John Green Inc. from Aurora, Illinois, from the replacement of rooftop HVAC unit at Phillips Park David and Karen Stover Visitor Center facility for $62,986.
Consent.
Hearing no objections, this item will go on consent.
And we conclude the meeting. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Chairman Garza. I will give the report for the Rules Administration and Procedures Committee. Rules Administration and Procedures Committee met on October 1st, 2024, and reviewed the following item. 24-0729, an ordinance authorizing the Director of Special Events to issue a permit allowing one additional carnival upon the premises of the Chicago Premium Outlets calendar year 2024.
Consent.
I got a question on that.
Alderman Bug?
I asked at RAP, carnivals are required to have a partner, a nonprofit partner to benefit the city. They were gonna get that information.
Rich Jacobs, Chief of Staff from the Alderman's Office. I had forwarded an email from Mike Nelson, our Director of Special Events, on October 2nd. And the information is the nonprofit group that is associated with the upcoming Fall Carnival at the Chicago Premium Outlet Mall is IC Knights Baseball.
IC Knights?
Capital I, capital C, Knights, KNIGHTS Baseball.
I'm finished.
Maybe we can get that, put that into our packet for next Tuesday.
Yes.
Deb Lang with Legal. This was already passed at the City Council meeting on October 8th. The way it came into RAP, it went directly to City Council as new business. So this has already been enacted, and I believe the carnival was this past weekend.
Then why was it on this agenda?
I believe it automatically populated onto the agenda.
No, we pull it onto the agenda just so that there's an actual report given of what was discussed at the meeting, because otherwise the alderman would say, we had a meeting and nothing, basically. So it's something to report on what you discussed at the meeting.
It's not an action item. Well, yeah, so, well, duly noted, so.
So, we'll hope that some great things are happening for that nonprofit. We'll get a report on how they're impacted by that carnival.
I will let Mike Nelson know.
Okay.
Thanks.
Consent?
Yeah, there is no
Consent.
action needed on that, so that concludes the Rules of Administration and Procedures Committee. Next discussion item, 24-0606, an ordinance setting the compensation of the alderpersons for the terms commencing in and after May of 2025 in accordance with the Illinois Municipal Code and the Local Government Officer Compensation Act. And this, correct me if I'm wrong, is just a discussion item for now?
Correct, no action.
No action,
Since
yeah,
it was
so
tabled,
discussion.
so it's just discussion.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. So, new business.
240760, a motion authorizing and directing the Chief Human Resources Officer to execute a settlement agreement on behalf of the city in workers' compensation claim number 23Q05156230.
Consent.
Consent.
Hearing no objections, this item will go on consent. There's no need for a closed session.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Donnell, second by Alderman Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And that concludes this meeting at 6:51 PM. Thank you. What am I, pro temp?